Right now, we are going to another very interesting session. This is building last mile ecosystem with next gen equipment. And our speakers are going to be Marar from the Bangalore International Airport and Sandeep Maini from the Maini Group. And this session is going to be moderated by Gopikrishnan Konnanath from Infosys. Enjoy the session, and we'll be back again waiting for you.
Thank you so much for having me and having all of us here for this very exciting discussion, a topic which is of very much relevance for current as well as for the future. All of us, and it's actually a pleasure to see people in a room after maybe a couple of years. I do know that it's a hybrid session. The last couple of years or a few years has been very challenging for a lot of us, both from a professional as well as personal perspective, and even in fact for the industries. While the threat of COVID seems to be reducing, I think the world is still going through a lot of turmoil, specifically amplified by the conflicts that is happening in Europe. You look at it, the challenges associated with the global supply chain, the rising prices, inflations, inability to get the right supplies at the right point of time, and all those elements are adding to these challenges. But the good news is a lot of industries are actually creating a growth momentum back into the growth, primarily driven by the power of technology with new business models, more automation, and more ability to collaborate between business partners. One such industry which is creating a very positive impact powered by technology is the last mile ecosystem. So if you look at the global material handling equipment industry, which is approximately $27 billion in size today, it is projected to be more than $50 billion in the next 10 years. If you look at the connected devices that is there with all of us today, which is probably 13 billion plus, it is expected to grow to more than 30 billion in numbers in the next 10 years, which essentially means that every single activity that we do will be driven by a digital footprint. The data will be digital, the data will be analyzed, consolidated, and it will be processed to make every activity more efficient, more agile, and more cost effective. And therein lies the power of technology driving the last mile ecosystem. To discuss this today, along with me are two stalwarts in the industry, Sandeep Maini and Marar, great friends of mine, people I have known for quite some time, and who have made their mark in the industry for a long time. Sandeep, let me start with you. You have been a pioneer of driving indigenous technology in the autonomous space. You've also worked with us in Infosys in the autonomous golf cart, where we have collaborated and launched this in multiple closed loop ecosystem. In addition to that, you have also been a pioneer in the charging industry, with swapping technology, battery industries, and so on and so forth. In your belief, with the industry growing with the power of technology, where do you see the opportunities as a leading provider from an OEM perspective, and also the challenges that you see in the market today?
Thank you, Gopi. Good evening, everyone. Pleasure to be here over here. I've normally been speaking in hardware industry, but it's nice to be here today and speak to you all. Before I do that, let me tell you, whether it's on campus, off campus, any kind of mobility in the future is going to be certainly electric. It's going to be shared. It's going to be autonomous. And it's going to be powered by renewable energy. And I think with this base in mind, we need to understand what is it going to be on the customer side, and therefore how does an OEM look to be able to move into the future keeping this in mind. This is the key of mobility as we go ahead. And just for your perspective, from 2020 to 2022, the number of electric two-wheelers sold in this country has grown 10 times, and the number of three-wheelers have tripled, right? And this is only the beginning. This is only the beginning. So the power of the technology that will come into as we go in the future is unimaginable if you really put it together. Now, coming to your question as an OEM, what do we look at? It's no longer the era of looking at products. So far, the OEMs were making products, customers were coming and taking the product. It's the area of giving solutions and complete solutions. So how do we understand each customer's challenge? What is it? And how can we give them that solution? However, the use of technology has changed the way we are giving the solution, because solutions have now become modular. And if you are prepared to put in the modular pieces, then all you have to do for customer A, B, or C is see which of these pieces fix that puzzle for them. And what we are doing today as an OEM is sorting that out. We are sorting the base out. Now, we could be working at airports, we could be working at parks, we could be working on the last mile of the metro ride, we could be working anywhere, whether it's with autonomous vehicles or basic electric vehicles as they move to autonomous. But this is what we are working today. Understanding what the OEM wants, creating a stack of solutions that you can put together and solve their problems. The second thing is that technology is moving very, very fast. Even if you take simple things like LiDARs, cameras, anything that's available, what is X today is available at half X tomorrow. The technology has changed. And therefore, the subsystems that we are making should be agnostic to that, should be able to take in that as we go ahead. Because customers today are not willing to spend. They're not willing to spend a lot of money. So you have to be able to manage their expectations by giving them the highest technology at the lowest price and a total ownership cost issue. So the point really now is, what is my ownership cost? What is my running cost? And can I optimize this entire thing? And that's how we are looking at any customer today. How can we do that in the best possible manner for them? But I'll give you a simple example. We're doing autonomous vehicles today. We have a base of customers who have more than 5,000 of our vehicles, right? Now, if I go to them and say, scrap this vehicle, and I'm going to give you an autonomous vehicle, there's going to be no taker. But if I tell them, give me your vehicle, and I'll retrofit it for you with autonomous technology, right? Everyone will jump on it. Because two things will happen. One, they'll use it as a pilot to understand the future. And as they grow, right, they'll start adopting that. What is the challenge we face today? The challenge we face is like any new technology. When electric vehicles came in, there were early starters, and then you took a lot of time to push it together. Now in autonomous vehicles, any form of mobility that we are doing, that's the same challenge we are going to face. There are going to be a few takers, there are going to be a few early adopters, and then what will happen is after some time, once we've been able to convince X number of people with it, it'll start moving ahead. Personally, for me, I don't think it's a big challenge, because I think from 20 years back till today, India has gone through a generational change. Today, all the youngsters today adapt to this technology very easily. They would like to use this technology. They don't have so many options. So our role today as an OEM is give them the options. Let them select what they want.
Perfect, great. Sandeep, as you said, the entire autonomous space is a confluence of technology and art. Right? You need to understand the user perspective and create the designs. And in addition to that, I do believe that along with the ecosystem that is existing today, the power of networking and the evolution of 5G, private 5G, hopefully in India, is going to accelerate the adoption as well as lower the costs, networking costs. Now, when we were discussing on this panel, we wanted to make sure that we had the perspectives from an OEM and of course from an end user perspective. And all of us are aware of the recent, if any one of you have traveled globally recently, you would have seen the pains of the airports, global airports. I have personally experienced it, bags not landing on time. You can see reports in Heathrow where the bags are piled up because people have left their bags and gone because it's not come in. I had a personal experience where I landed in an airport in US and the aero bridge was not functioning and they had no way of getting us out of the plane, and we had to wait for 30 minutes to get out of the plane. There was no people to push back, to drive the pushback equipments, to push back the aircraft, so flights getting delayed. A huge amount of labor shortages in all these aspects. And somehow it made me believe that Bangalore airport is the best in the world, right? And so I thought it will be great to have Hari join us today. Hari has been a pioneer in terms of driving innovation in the airport. Many years back, I think it was about 5 years back, he launched the concept of your face is your boarding pass, and people have not even heard about it at that time. And he actually implemented it at that, during that time. In fact, if you pass through the airports, you can see these autonomous bots, and you can ask them for your gate, and it'll take you to the gate, I think, today, right, Harry? Yeah. So I just want to, as someone who has been very innovative in terms of the thinking, and someone who is actually handling the airport, which is probably having connection to 23 international destinations, more than 16 million passengers, the third largest or busiest in India. And of course, it could become much more busier and the days ahead with A380 landing very soon. What is your perspective in terms of the last mile ecosystem? As a passenger, I just want to come in and get into my flight as smooth as possible. And I'm sure it will be the same with the cargoes or whatever it is. Your perspective, your challenges, and what is the future that you see in terms of innovation that you are going to bring in?
Thank you for that great introduction, Gopi. But for those who have read the newspapers this morning, unfortunately, we were in the newspapers for the wrong reason. On Monday morning, we had people missing flights on account of crowding at the airport. And so, in that context, maybe not just the best timing, but I still believe that we stand among the better airports in the world. And there is a reason for this astounding growth that we are seeing in Indian aviation. I think the pandemic was a great, it played a great role in making people realize that aviation probably is the safest and the most reliable form of travel in the world today, right? And whether it's for people or for goods, for getting goods from one place to the other, it's really the most reliable and the safest form of travel around the world. And as a result of which, we've seen some incredible growth. Our aim at Bangalore Airport has been to try and ensure that the journey of passengers is seamless end to end. Now, when I say this, it's very easy for airports to fall in the trap of focusing entirely on the services that the airports provide and making sure that's efficient. But what we've done, from the time we got established, it is looked at the possibility of connecting the journey for an individual from his origin all the way to his destination. Let me give you an example. For those who have been Bangaloreans, you would recollect that right from the beginning, one of the biggest concerns that people had about Bangalore Airport opening up in Devanahalli was the fact that it's so far away from the city, and everyone spoke about it, that it's so far away. And unfortunately, when the airport was established, not too much thought was given into how people will get to the airport, how people landing at the airport will get to the city. And that's precisely this issue of last mile connectivity. How do we make this last mile connectivity happen? And I remember in 2007, us sitting out BMTC and saying, how can we make sure that we bridge this gap in people's mind of the distance from the city? And we launched two important products at that point of time. One is what many of you may have used, called the Vayu Vajra bus service, which is the bus service that BMTC runs between the city. We identified 17 routes and really looked at getting people to as close to their homes as possible in a city as widespread and as non-linear as Bangalore. It's, from a city perspective, is as widespread as you can get. And the second, we're still the only airport in the country that has its own airport taxi fleet. This is also an aspect of ensuring last mile connectivity. We've done interesting stuff in the space of cargo, for instance. Getting goods from one place to the other in India, the logistics networks has been, let's say, primitive to say the least. Of course, in the last 2 years, what has seen is, as a result of COVID, as a result of this huge demand in e-commerce and on-demand services, time-bound services, there has been a big change in the area of logistics and supply chain in the country today. So one of the, a couple of things that have really worked well for the industry is just the way infrastructure has transformed itself. So we moved from go-downs to really high-quality logistics warehouses today, right? Which are data-driven, which focus on ensuring that goods can get to people within 24 hours, any part of the country, and things like that. Second is the use of digital technology to bring about real-time awareness of what's happening. These are some of the more important moves, but really the trick is in the transport network. Almost 2/3 of all logistics networks in India works on freight trucks, and it's high time we change that. So today what we have done is, for instance, there is, let's say, textiles that are being manufactured in Tirupur going to United States. Earlier, they had to transport themselves to airport, and then worry about connecting them, making sure they get to the flight on time, processing them through customs, etc. We have taken that whole infrastructure, and that's again a key element of last mile connectivity. We have taken that whole connectivity, that whole infrastructure to the point of production. So we actually do customs clearance from Tirupur, put them on bonded trucks, literally land up 3 hours before the flight and connect them internationally. It's called the LogiConnect program, and so on and so forth. Several such programs that we've started. The Flybus is another great example of last mile connectivity. As somebody who had to travel, let's say from Delhi to Mysore, would have had to take a flight from Delhi to Bangalore and then figure out how to travel to Mysore next. Do I go from from the airport to the city? How long do I wait before I get my train or bus to go to Mysore? And today we have what is known as a Flybus service that we launched in partnership with KSRTC that starts from the airport. So at the first level, from a last mile connectivity perspective, our aim as an airport is to make sure all these, not just focus on the airport, but to look at the entire value chain of a passenger's travel from the point he starts his journey right till the end, and linking all that together. The first step is to co-locate these modes of transport. So you have air travel and the bus on which he gets to Mysore coming together and being located at the same place. Secondly, link them together in terms of schedules. Can we make sure that the bus starts at a time when most of the passengers are arriving? Alignment of schedules is second step. Third step, use technology to link these together and say, can I buy this on a single ticket? Flight from Delhi to Bangalore and my ticket from Bangalore to Mysore. Can that be on a single ticket? And finally, make that information available to the consumer so that the whole burden of stitching travel together is not on the passenger, but on the members of the ecosystem. And slowly as we head forward, the next steps is to make sure all these elements of last mile connectivity, both within the campus and outside the campus, focus on autonomous, sustainable solutions, cost-effective solutions. And that's where we partner with guys like Sandeep, with whom we've done a fantastic project on trying autonomous vehicles within the campus. And I think that's worked out successfully, and we're preparing to roll out more such solutions within the campus as we go forward. So there are many more ideas I can talk about, but I'm going to stop it here in the interest of time and hand it back to you, Gopi.
Thanks, Hari. I think that's a very, very different perspective from just getting into the airport and getting into the flight. So you actually have covered a larger ecosystem. So thank you so much, and I do hope that some of this would continue to amplify and make our lives as passengers much more simpler, convenient, and easier, of course safer. Sandeep, so back to you. I think, if I'm right, you are the first one to launch the electric car in India with Reva, right? And now you're into autonomous buggies, which is already in the market. And I'm sure we will have it in Infosys campus, the autonomous ones, in probably a couple of weeks' time, right, Dr. Ravi? Yeah. So it has been an absolute pleasure to work with you, collaborate with you. It's like a 360-degree partnership that we have been having. Now, my question to you is, as and when this ecosystem keeps amplifying, you would need a lot of support in terms of policies, because it's not just a vehicle running, right? You would probably need to have the collaborative ecosystem coming together, the government interventions in terms of the support that is required. How do you have the charging points, the recycling aspects of it, and so on and so forth. What are the kind of things that you see today from that perspective, from the policies and government support, and what are the things that additionally that would be required from industry forums and government to make this a part of the DNA for the country?
Thank you, Gopi. Just want to, before I say that, allude to one point, very important point that Hari mentioned, which I was talking about is, if you see everything that Hari mentioned about what they were doing in Mile, it's a solution-based approach. It's not a product. He's not saying, I'm giving you a flybus, you come out, you take it and go. He's giving you a solution. I think that's where the entire ecosystem is moving towards, is on a solution. Now, coming to your point, what I must say is, in the last 3 years, there's been tremendous policy advocacy and movement on policy as far as electric vehicle charging and swapping infrastructure is concerned. And a lot of things are happening on that front. We may feel that it's happening at a little slower pace than we think, but that's always the general impression. But I must say that on that front, in the last 2 years, the national government, state governments have started to realize that this is really the future. And like I told you, the kind of vehicles that are being sold and the volume at which the vehicles are being sold, this is a no-brainer. They have to do that. But when we come to connected, when we come to using technology, when we come to renewable energy, there's still a lot to be done. And I think that it's going to happen faster than we think. And therefore, it is very, very important now for a think tank to put together and say, hey, listen, what is going to be the situation here in 5 years? And how do we prepare for that? And I think in case of that, let's take autonomous specifically, even on campus. I think off-campus, on-road autonomous is still a little far away here in terms of when it will be adopted. But on-campus can be adopted. It's already being adopted by many companies. Even for that, there needs to be a policy. Industry bodies have to come together and say, hey, listen, what are the safety norms? What are the standards? So that people are just not making products anywhere in the world and saying we make an autonomous vehicle, right? What are the standards? What are the safety standards? How should it follow? In every area is very, very important. And I think there, most of you now in NASSCOM, this is technology. This is all within what you all have done in your business for the last 3-4 decades, is you have worked on advocacy using technology. And I think this is all that needs to be done now, that what are the right technologies, how will it be used, how can it benefit, and then make a plan as far as that is concerned. As far as the supply chain is concerned, I'd also like to bring that here. Because today, in electronics, in technology, there's a huge challenge of supply chain. And if India has to progress as far as that is concerned, especially with these new technologies, is one thing having a technology, is the other thing being able to implement it. And I think a lot of work has to be done as far as that is concerned, to be able to bring all stakeholders aside and say, this is going to be the growth that's going to take place in India, and these are the areas that we must work together. I want to also mention one thing over here, which I believe very, very strongly, is that in India today, the era of islands of excellence is gone. 3 decades ago, there were stalwart companies standing and running the roost, right? That's gone. If we want our cities, our communities, our country to progress at the speed that we want it to progress, then it's become an era of collaboration, cooperation, and coordination. I call it the 3 Cs, right? And why is this? It's because of the synergies that we don't tend to use over here. There are all of you representing different companies, probably doing some similar technologies, similar services, similar thing. But we never sit together and say whose strength is where and how can we have a multiplier effect. In my opinion, in the next decade, in the next 2 decades, we have to get together not only with the government, with all stakeholders, not work individually, but work together so that we can create this multiplier effect. But this will be the good of every single person. But also, the higher objective, it will be good for the country. So I'll stop here and...
Perfect. Thanks, thanks, Sandeep. In fact, the shortage of the chip industry is very well known, and I think there's a lot in India that we can do to make ourselves self-sufficient, because every connected device for the future would require the chips, right? I do think I have probably time for one more question, and I will probably conclude with that with Hari. Hari, I think the morning, the panel discussion, we had an exciting panel where the larger theme was in terms of a sustainable ecosystem. And you are growing, you probably, very soon will launch a new terminal. You'll have more aircrafts coming in. In fact, one of the conversations in the morning, if I remember, was people saying, how do you keep aircrafts? How do you make them land or make them spend only the necessary time in the air and not more than that? And a lot of challenges because of the weather, fog conditions and all those stuff, which possibly is also a last mile for that particular aircraft, right? And your growth and sustainability has to go hand in hand. And I'm aware that you do give a lot of focus in terms of building a sustainable ecosystem. I want to get your perspective in terms of from an airport and airline ecosystem. What are the things that you are doing and you propose to do? And how do we make sure that the targets in terms of a carbon neutral industry is met, which is still a little 30 years or so away. but what is the contributions that an airport ecosystem can provide to that?
You've asked me a 25-minute question with 9 seconds on the clock, but I'm going to give it a shot nevertheless. So listen, I think as an airport, we're a 4,000-acre campus where our job is to continuously build. We know construction is one of the biggest contributors to the carbon footprint globally. Aviation is another large contributor for carbon footprint. So while our business, which is the business of developing and managing and expanding an airport, is on the basis of a concession contract with the government of India, our moral contract is to the land on which we operate, to maybe thousands of farmers who've given up their land, their homes, their farmlands, their livelihoods for us to establish our campus. It's our deep-rooted commitment and deep-rooted, let's say, sense of commitment to the cause that we must leave behind a campus in a better shape than we found it when we started establishing the airport, that guides our entire philosophy on sustainability. So very early on, we decided that every bit of business that we do on this campus must be on the basis of responsible decision making. So we set ourselves the goal that by the year 2020, we will run the campus 100% on renewable energy. And we hit that target from 2020 onwards, November 2020 onwards. The entire campus runs purely on renewable energy, 75% solar, 25% wind. We take about 3% of power from BESCOM just to keep the relationship with BESCOM going. And then, of course, as far as water is concerned, when we established the campus in Devanahalli, it was known to be a rain shadow area. There was severe water shortage in that area. We committed ourselves back in 2008 that we will make this a water surplus campus. In 2021, Indian Institute of Science certified us to be water positive, and with a water positivity index of 1.37, which is for every liter of water we consume, we conserve and reuse 1.37 liters of water. So that's a water positivity story there. But apart from that, so we are certified carbon neutral for the last 4 years, and so on and so forth. And the challenge is to be able to go on continuing to keep this commitment as we expand and become larger, because not only are we going to do aviation activities there, but also non-aviation activities. We are building an airport city there. So I think there's a whole lot of burden on us to continue along that path. So we have established an energy subsidiary that's going to produce renewable energy for the next foreseeable future as far as we are concerned. So we'll remain powered by renewable energy for the forever, for that matter. Apart from that, I think from a last mile connectivity perspective, 2-3 quick points before we close on what we are doing as far as this thing is concerned. So I spoke about the fact that we have our own airport taxi fleet. With the recent tender that we've just launched, we've mandated that 50% of the fleet has to be EV fleet. So airport taxis will be operated on EV, and you'll be able to use EV cars. Similarly, we tied up with Virgin Hyperloop. We have an MOU with Virgin Hyperloop. We're looking at how can we use Hyperloop for connecting goods from one place to the other. For example, a large part of the number of trucks and vehicles that come to the airport are to carry cargo. The whole idea is how can we link all that through a Hyperloop, let's say, ring that goes around the city, and so in a hub and spoke manner, without any traffic on the road, gets goods to the airport in a timely fashion. Another great example of not a very high-tech solution, but still nevertheless a great solution that looks at last mile connectivity but eliminates a whole lot of congestion from the roads and carbon footprint, is how we bring fuel to the airport. World over, especially in Indian airports, fuel to the airport is brought in trucks, in tankers, and it could be up to hundreds and thousands of tankers that come to the airport every day to bring fuel. What we did is established at Devankunti a tankering facility connected by a pipeline to the city, to the airport, which means there are no oil tankers. So irrespective, it's a common use pipeline. So irrespective of who the supplier is, whether it's Reliance, Bharat Petroleum or Indian Oil, they dump their fuel there. It comes to the airport. From the airport tankers, it goes to the aircraft and underground fuel hydrant system. It's another great example of last mile connectivity using technology that eliminates congestion on the roads as well as takes care of carbon footprint. So a few examples to leave you with and to whet your appetite. Time's certainly up.
Thank you so much. And in respect of the time for the next speakers, we probably cannot take question. What a fantastic panel. A lot of things that both of you have spoken about is not there in the public domain. The ideas, the thinking. It is great for the audience to know about it. And of course, we'll do our own justice about speaking about it to larger forums as we go ahead. So thank you so much for your time. Sandeep, Hari, both of you have been extremely busy, I know that. And I've been able to drag you back in. And Hari, I know you have to go back to the airport to do the rest of the work, so I know how traffic is in Bangalore is. Thank you so much once again, and audience, thank you so much for being.
Thank you. That was a fascinating one, isn't it, Savya?
Absolutely.
Especially all of us can touch and feel. I think a lot of topics have been covered in the last 30 minutes. To just quote few things, connected experience, customer experience for the last mile, and whether it is on multimodal transportation, whether it is about charging infrastructure, whether it is making the electrification that is going to happen across the country and globally. How do you think the charging infrastructure is going to be enabled through renewable source? I think that's going to be a major issue. So all of us want to have the charging infrastructure at our doorstep. And also the importance of creating multiplier effect through ecosystem. And when you really want to talk about sustainable innovation, especially with changing nature of the urbanization, the climate challenge issues, especially those who are in Bangalore would understand what I'm saying and what we have gone through in the last 2 weeks. I think this requires to be addressed by the local community, working with government, private partnerships to enable some of these solutions to be done for the consumers. So I think the community innovation is going to be critical, and we want to really get to carbon neutrality sooner than 2070 as laid out by the Indian government. I think everybody has something to offer. So thank you so much for listening to us. And from here, me and Savya, and wish you a good luck for the rest of the sessions.
Thank you.